Hey everyone, it's Clay. There are many factors that influence fishing. Some we have control over and some we don't. In this short video, we're going to talk about eliminating factors that negatively impact your fishing to help put more fish in your boat. It's the middle of May, and the last week and a half we've had several rain and thunderstorms in and out of the area. This has greatly dampened the fishing, and just noticeably so. It has just shut the fish off. And my last two trips have been pretty slow. So one thing, whenever weather is not ideal and not stable and there's thunderstorms in and out of the area, there are factors that we can usually modify, such as when we go fishing, the time of day, how we present bait, and tactics that we try. One huge modifiable factor would be when you go fishing. A lot of us are juggling families, a full work schedule, all the chores that we need to do. So sometimes it's hard to go fishing in the mornings whenever it's best. But that's one thing. If you can go fishing in the morning, it'll help get you an advantage over your fishing trip and how many fish you're going to catch. One thing I've noticed is that the fish stack up in very predictable areas. Once you find those areas, it's very predictable. Those fish will stack up, and they're very aggressive in the mornings. They usually feed at first light for a couple hours, 3-4 hours, and then it shuts back down, and it's like they just chill for the rest of the day. And then in the evenings, if I do an evening trip, because that's what my friends are able to do with me, it'll show that the fish just are not nearly as stacked up. They're a little more scattered. They're not nearly as active. Sometimes you can still have some great trips, but it's predictably not as good as morning trips. So go in the morning, go early, and the first few hours often are the most productive for hybrids and white bass. So give that a shot next time you're on the lake, especially when the weather is not in your favor. Another factor that can help put more fish in your boat is when the fish are shut down and the fishing gets tough. One tactic that will often get you out of a jam is trolling. And with downriggers or crankbaits, what this allows you to do, if the water is warm enough and allows you to do this technique, it'll allow you to present your bait to several disinterested fish to hopefully pick out the few that are interested. So downrigging and trolling are often two things that'll get you out of a bind when the fishing gets tough. Another thing you can try is use natural forage. Sometimes when the fishing is tough, it's easier to feed them than to trick them with artificial bait. So here in Abilene, we use a lot of shad. That's their primary forage, threadfin and gizzard shad. So whenever I know the fishing is going to get tough, or if I get to the lake and I discover it's going to be a real tough day for catching, then I will go catch some shad, and sometimes it's easier to feed them than to trick them. Another factor that you can modify is using a fish thumper. I have a video on my website about fish thumpers, and that's a well-known technique among guides. A lot of them use fish thumpers to catch white bass, hybrids, and stripers. What it is a constant thumping sound, and it appeals to the fish's lateral lines. They have a bunch of pores on the side of them, and they can actually sense the vibration, and it's something that'll help attract them. Once you get on top of them, it helps really gang them up and usually fire them up. And I've noticed that has put a lot more fish in my boat when I started using a thumper. One of the last things I want to share with you is something that's helped me so much in my fishing is to take notes on my trips. Over the last 3 years since I started white bass and hybrid fishing, I've taken a lot of screenshots, and I will upload them to my phone. And under the notes tab, I will usually post a bunch of screenshots and kind of sum up my trip. For the first year or two, I described a lot about what didn't work. And I tried to be encouraged by, figuring out what doesn't work is just as important, and it's getting you a step closer to figuring out what does work. So that's one of my biggest helpful hints that I can pass on to you is whenever the fishing gets tough, I hope you have some notes that you can go back and figure out what didn't work, what did work this time last year. And at some point, even if you don't understand how to read sonar, I remember for the first year or two, I took a lot of screenshots, didn't necessarily know what I was seeing, and I'm still learning to this day. But at least I knew at some point I'm going to understand what I'm seeing, and it's going to come together for me. So be encouraged by that. Take some screenshots. Even if you don't understand exactly what you're seeing, put it in your phone, and that way you can go back and look at your notes on a particular day, what the water temperature was, where were the fish at, where where were they not, what did work for you, what didn't work for you. Those notes have been invaluable for me, and they have helped me put more fish in my boat because of it. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. And just remember, when the fishing gets tough, eliminate factors that are going to impact your fishing negatively to help give you an advantage.